So it's been just over about a half a year since the Osmo Action 3 was released, and DJI took an interesting step with this camera because they kind of took a step backwards from what they did with the Osmo Action 2, which was the kind of modular camera. This is very much just a regular action camera, but after using this for, a long-term period, and it's kind of been my main action camera, I think they hit this out of the park, and it's my favorite action camera ever for a few main reasons. And some of the updates that they've done to this really, I think, make it worth it. One of the best things about this camera is the build. DJI advertises that themselves, and also just in my use, that's one of my favorite things in a few different ways. I haven't been light on this camera whatsoever. I treat this like the rugged camera it claims to be, and so far it looks pretty much perfect. So I pretty much always keep it on a stick like this, and I'll just toss it in the car, toss it in my bag, wherever it needs to go. I'm not worried about this thing getting scratched. I'm not worried about whatever happens to it. If it does, it does, but that's kind of the point of this camera for me. But after all this time, it holds up very well. But one of the reasons I use it so often is because of the way that it's built, mainly for the mounting points. And this is, I think, my favorite feature of the camera overall. The magnetic latch on the bottom is just a game changer, and it makes using the action camera in different situations so much easier. So on the bottom of the camera itself, there's a magnet and a little latch system. And then on the other end, there's another magnet and the latches. So you can attach this to whatever you want. Like I said, I usually keep it on a selfie stick of some sort, but all I have to do is, that's it. The camera is attached because it uses magnets and those latches. And to take it off, it's just as simple. There you go. I mean, that is the easiest way to attach a camera to any type of mount that I've ever used, and it makes me want to actually use this. But another thing that I have found useful with this mounting system is actually with the case. So on here, there's another mounting point, but in the vertical orientation. And now this is made clearly for like social media, if you're doing TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all that kind of thing. And while I haven't quite gotten into that as much as I probably should have, honestly, I still like to use that orientation, but for me, it's for one main purpose. One of the shots I tend to do a lot because it's easy and it kind of just works is hold the camera out the car window and point it in wherever direction I'm going, or maybe point it behind me. But if you notice, if I attach the camera as it is and hold it out the window, well, now the camera is sideways. Now, if that's what you want, great, but that's not what I want. I want it to be facing this direction, but I could still hold it out the window. And that's where the case comes in. So putting it in the case, it is now more protected, but it also has that mount, so I can attach it that way. And now when I hold it out the window, it is in the correct orientation, or the orientation I want at least. And that is just a very simple thing that is so easy to do with this. It's something that I do a lot with this camera, and I just like it a lot. Now, build and kind of those features are important, but obviously not the most important. You want it to look really good. You want the footage to be of good quality. And in the last few months, they have updated it to now have 10-bit recording. This was something that they promised at the beginning, and it actually did come. And this is great for someone like me who likes to color correct video a lot. I always shoot in a flat profile, so in this case, D-Cine-like. And that gives me the most flexibility in post so that I can, adjust the colors as I see fit. And having 10-bit just means you have more colors and more options in post. This is something that you kind of expect these days on higher end cameras, but having it in an action camera, well, just helps. And what I think it really helps with is when matching it to other cameras. So for instance, for the video I shot that you're seeing all this footage from, which is actually for a new channel. So be sure to stay tuned to the channel when I announce when that channel is live. But I recorded all of that video with the Canon C70, which is what you're looking at me with, and the DJI Osmo Action 3, but these are very clearly not the same kind of camera. But having that flexibility in post just means it's a little easier to match the colors. Still a little bit of work because they're so different of a camera, but hey, I think it works pretty well. Now, if I do have one criticism, it's that I do think DJI is doing a little bit too much compression in the video, or maybe over sharpening. It just looks a little crunchy is the way I'd say it. It almost feels in certain situations like it's an upscaled 1080p instead of a true 4K. And I know that's not the case. It is actually shooting in 4K, but I think maybe their processing could be brought back just a tad, and then it would make it look a little bit more natural. But even still, I think the footage looks really good, and it's certainly passable. You can still tell it's an action cam most of the time, but it gives you the flexibility of, being able to use it in different locations, but also give you some pretty decent image quality. For me, I always tend to shoot in the 4:3 4K aspect ratio at around 30 frames per second, depends kind of what I'm filming. I like to shoot in 30 because I can slow it down to 80% to conform to a 24 frames per second timeline, and it just gives you a little bit of smoothness, not enough for you to know that it's actually slowed down, but just kind of smooth everything out a little bit. And the 4:3 is great because I'm not really paying attention to the screens when I'm recording, even though having these screens is great. The screen on the back is huge, and the one on the front is very helpful as well, and it's a touchscreen. So you can do pretty much all your controls from both screens, or at least control the camera as much as you need. But because I'm not really looking at the screen while I'm recording, that 4:3 just gives me some more latitude when it comes to post. So if I need to shift something up, I can. If I need to shift it down, I can. Just, gives you more flexibility, which is what I think these cameras are all about. Now, DJI has also introduced an HDR mode, which is also 10-bit, and there is an enhanced video mode. So there's a lot of features that have come to the camera since it came out. And overall, it's just a really compelling package. Since I've moved away from the ocean, I haven't really used this underwater at all, but that is something I used to do a lot with cameras like this. And knowing that this is waterproof for those times when I eventually do go and use this underwater, very nice to have. And I also really love that you can buy the optional accessories like the battery case. So I have 3 batteries for this thing and I can charge them all in one case. Even though the battery life on the Action 3 seems to be pretty solid, I've never really been concerned about it, but having those backups always ready to go makes it a little less stressful. And I think the question everyone still has is this really worth buying, especially if you're comparing to something like the GoPro? And for the price, I say that yes, this is unequivocally the best deal you can get for this type of camera. You're gonna get some really solid image quality, you're getting a really rugged camera, and it's continuing to get features that really, I think, make this camera better. But over the last few months, I have thoroughly enjoyed using the Osmo Action 3, and honestly, when I need an action camera and I need that kind of shot, the Action 3 is what I pick up.